My daughter showed up at my door after 15 years of silence. The same day my lottery win hit the news. She brought suitcases, her husband, and his parents. "We've come for our share," she announced, eyeing my villa like it was already hers. I watched them settle into my home, smiling, planning, calculating. They thought I was desperate enough to forget. They thought wrong. What I did next changed everything, and they never saw it coming. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments section where you're watching from, so I'll know how far my story has gone. I heard them before I saw them. 2:47 p.m. The gravel driveway crunched under tires, a sound I'd grown to love in the 3 months since I moved into this Malibu villa. It meant I'd arrived, that the years of back pain and oil-stained hands had somehow led me here. But today, that sound made my coffee mug tremble. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the front gate, watching a black SUV roll to a stop beneath the California sun. The door opened, and there she was, Sarah. My daughter stepped out first, her blonde hair catching the light the same way it did when she was 8 years old. For a split second, just one heartbeat, I forgot. I forgot the 15 years. I forgot the silence. I forgot the way she looked through me at her mother's funeral, like I was a stranger. Then Derek emerged from the driver's side, tall, confident, wearing a polo shirt that probably cost more than my old work boots. Behind them, 2 older people I didn't recognize climbed out, his parents, I assumed. All 4 of them moved with purpose, pulling suitcases from the trunk like they were checking into a hotel. My hotel. Sarah looked up at the villa, shielding her eyes. Even from here, I could see her face transform, eyes widening, lips parting into something between awe and hunger. She said something to Derek. He nodded. They all smiled. Those smiles. I'd seen Sarah smile 1,000 times. When she lost her first tooth, when I surprised her with that bike for Christmas, the one I saved 6 months to buy, when she got her acceptance letter to UCLA, the school I worked 70-hour weeks to help pay for. This wasn't that smile. This was performance, calculation, the kind of expression you practice in a mirror before a job interview you don't actually want to go on. They started toward the front door, wheels of expensive luggage clicking against stone. Sarah walked ahead, her posture straight, her chin high. She looked successful, put together, like someone who'd never spent a single night worrying about rent or picking up extra shifts at the docks. I realized I was still holding my coffee. It had gone cold. 15 years ago, she'd called me an embarrassment, said it to my face in our cramped San Diego apartment, the same apartment where I'd rocked her to sleep as a baby, where I'd taught her to read, where I'd promised her I'd always be there. "You're pathetic," she'd said. "I can't do this anymore." The door had slammed, and then nothing. No calls, no texts, not even when her mother died. I'd sent flowers to the funeral, white lilies, her mother's favorite. Sarah never even glanced my way. Now here she was, 40 feet from my front door, dragging her life and her husband's family onto my property like she'd never left. Like 15 years of silence could be erased by proximity to money. Through the window, I watched her raise her hand to ring the doorbell. My doorbell. I set down my mug, straightened my shirt, took one long breath, and I realized something that made my chest tighten. They hadn't come home. They'd come hunting. The doorbell rang, but I didn't move. Instead, I stood there staring at the framed photograph on the mantel, the one I'd carried with me through 3 apartments, 2 evictions, and more lonely nights than I care to count.
Sarah, 8 years old. Balboa Park, San Diego. I'm pushing her on a swing set, and she's laughing so hard her pigtails are flying. You can see pure joy frozen in that moment. Hers and mine. Back then, she was my whole world. I wonder when that changed. The smell hit me first. Not the vanilla candle burning in my villa now, but the memory of industrial oil and salt water. The docks. I can still feel the burn in my shoulders from hauling cargo in the pre-dawn darkness, the way my hands would crack and bleed in winter. Double shifts were the norm, sometimes triple when bills piled up. I did it for her. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd lace up those steel-toed boots, the ones that eventually fell apart at the seams, and I'd think about Sarah's future, about making sure she had better than I did, about UCLA acceptance letters and graduation ceremonies I'd get to attend with pride. Funny how things work out. She was 23 years old when she left. I'd just lost my job at the plant. Budget cuts, they said. The rent was 2 months overdue. Our San Diego apartment had started to feel like a prison, walls closing in with every unpaid bill shoved under the door. "You're an embarrassment," she'd said. I can still hear the disgust in her voice, see the way her lip curled when she looked at me sitting on our worn couch in my undershirt, job applications spread across the coffee table. I can't do this anymore. I can't be associated with this. She'd waved her hand at our life, at me. The door slammed at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I sat there staring at the clock until it got dark, thinking she'd come back, that she'd cool off and realize, but she didn't come back. Not that day, not the next week, not ever. I learned what silence sounds like. It's not peaceful, it's deafening. It's Father's Day coming and going without a text. It's her mother's funeral where my own daughter stood 15 feet away and looked right through me like I was invisible. I sent flowers, white lilies. I even wrote a card. "I'm here if you need me. Love, Dad." She left them at the gravesite. The eviction notice came 4 months after she left. Pink paper, official stamps. I packed everything into my truck, including that photo from Balboa Park. I couldn't leave it behind. Even after everything, I couldn't. I moved into a studio in Chula Vista, then a room in National City, worked whatever jobs I could find. Warehouses, construction, night security. The ache in my lower back became permanent. My reflection in the mirror aged faster than the calendar. But I survived. I learned to live without her voice, without her birthday calls I'd never get, without the daughter I'd raised alone and loved with everything I had. 15 years of learning to let go. And now she was standing on the other side of my door, finger probably hovering over the bell again. The doorbell rang a second time. I looked at that photo one more time, at her smile, at the father I used to be. Then I walked toward the door. I opened the door. Sarah didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped into my foyer like she was crossing a threshold she'd crossed 1,000 times before, confident, entitled, already surveying the space with appraising eyes. "Dad," she voiced, too bright, too loud. "Oh my God, this place is incredible." She moved past me without a hug, without even a real look. Her heels clicked across the marble floor I'd chosen myself. Italian marble, the designer had said. Each step echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Derek followed, hand extended. "Mr. Patterson, Derek Chen. Good to finally meet you, sir. Finally. As if 15 years of silence had been mere scheduling conflicts. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, practiced, the kind of handshake they teach in business school. Behind him, Derek's parents shuffled in, with their designer luggage, Louis Vuitton, I think. The mother wore pearls. The father had silver hair and a Rolex that caught the afternoon light streaming through my windows. My windows. My light. "This is stunning," Sarah breathed, running her fingers along the console table in the entryway. "Is this real oak? And that chandelier? It must have cost a fortune." She laughed, high-pitched, performative. I said nothing. Just watched as she moved deeper into my home, Derek trailing behind her like a shadow. His parents planted themselves in the living room, already examining the furniture, the art on the walls, the view of the Pacific Ocean through the glass doors. "We heard about your lottery win," Sarah continued. $36 million. Dad, that's life-changing money. We're so happy for you, really." Derek nodded enthusiastically. "Incredible luck, sir. Just incredible." "We've been talking," Sarah said, her voice shifting, still sweet, but with an edge underneath. "And we think it's time we reconnected. Family should stick together, especially during big moments like this." Derek's father cleared his throat from the couch. "These guest rooms, how many are there? We'll need accommodations, of course. Separate spaces. Privacy is important." I blinked. "Accommodations?" "Well, yes," Sarah said, as if it were obvious. "We've come for our share, Dad. It's only fair. You raised me. That money is partially mine, right? And Derek and I are married, so what's mine is his. And his parents are getting older. They deserve comfort." She trailed off, waiting for me to fill the silence. I didn't. Derek pulled out his phone. "We were thinking, conservatively, maybe 8 to 10 million would be a fair starting point. That leaves you plenty, and we can all invest wisely, build something together." Build something together. I almost laughed. Sarah stepped closer, her expression softening into something that might have looked like affection if I didn't know better. She reached for my hand. Her skin was soft, manicured, no calluses from hard work. "We're family, Dad," she said quietly. "You wouldn't leave us out, right? After everything?" After everything. The words hung in the air like smoke. Derek's parents were already discussing which rooms they'd prefer. Derek was typing on his phone, probably calculating, planning, dividing up money that wasn't his. And Sarah stood there, holding my hand, wearing the same smile she'd had in that photograph on the mantel, except now I could see what I'd missed before. It had never reached her eyes. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something settle in my chest, something calm, something final. I smiled. I said, "Let me think about it."
They took the guest wing, all four of them, settling in like they'd booked a vacation rental. I could hear them upstairs, muffled voices, laughter, the sound of suitcases being unpacked in rooms I'd never even slept in myself. I stood in the hallway on the main floor, alone. Funny how a 10,000 square foot villa can feel emptier than that studio apartment in Chula Vista ever did. My footsteps echoed against the marble as I walked. Each sound bounced off the vaulted ceilings, the custom millwork, the walls I'd chosen because the designer said they'd create warmth. But warmth isn't something you can buy at a tile store. I was learning that the hard way. I ended up in my office, the one room I'd actually made mine.
My desk sat in front of floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Moonlight streaked across the water like a silver road to nowhere. And there, in the corner of my desk, partially hidden under some unread mail, the letter. Cream-colored envelope. My ex-wife's handwriting. Postmarked 3 days before she died. I'd carried it with me from the funeral home to my old apartment to this villa. 3 years, and I still hadn't opened it. My hand hovered over it now, fingers trembling slightly. I could feel the weight of words I'd never read. Things Linda had needed to say but never got to tell me in person. I pulled my hand back. Not tonight. The funeral came back to me in fragments, the way grief always does. Forest lawn cemetery. October rain. The smell of wet grass and too many flowers. I'd stood in the back, away from the family section, because I didn't know if I belonged there anymore. Sarah had been in the front row, black dress, sunglasses hiding her eyes. I'd watched her accept condolences from relatives I used to know, colleagues from Linda's teaching job, friends who remembered us as a family. I'd wanted to go to her, to put my hand on her shoulder, to tell her that I was there, that whatever had broken between us, grief was something we could share. But when she'd turned and looked in my direction, her gaze had passed right through me, like I wasn't there, like I'd never been there. I sent the flowers afterward, white lilies, Linda's favorite since our first anniversary when I'd surprised her with a bouquet from that little shop on University Avenue. I'd written a card. I'm here if you need me. Love, Dad. Sarah had left them at the gravesite, unopened cards still attached. Grief, I learned that day, feels heavier when no one helps you carry it. I drove home alone, ate alone, woke up alone. And the silence. God, the silence was worse than any argument Linda and I ever had. At least anger is proof that someone still cares enough to fight. Silence is abandonment. Now, standing in this office with its expensive furniture and its view of the Pacific, I felt that same silence pressing against my chest. Upstairs, Sarah was laughing, probably showing Derek and his parents around, claiming spaces, making plans for money that wasn't theirs. She hadn't asked about Linda, hadn't mentioned the funeral, hadn't acknowledged that her mother had been gone for 3 years and I'd faced that loss alone. It was as if those 15 years and everything that happened during them had simply been erased by $36 million. I looked at Linda's letter again. I'm sorry, I whispered to the envelope. To her, to the past. The villa echoed back nothing. I left the office, closing the door behind me. Above, I could still hear them, my daughter and her new family, settling into my home like it had always been theirs. Tomorrow, I'd tell them the truth. Tonight, I just needed to remember who I was before the money, and who I'd become because of it.
Breakfast was served at 8. I'd hired a chef 3 weeks ago, a luxury I still wasn't used to. Fresh squeezed orange juice, Belgian waffles, eggs cooked to order, the kind of spread I used to see in magazines while eating instant oatmeal in my truck before dawn shifts. Sarah came down first, wearing silk pajamas that probably cost more than my old monthly rent. She kissed my cheek, a gesture so foreign it almost made me flinch. "Morning, Daddy," she said. "You sleep well?" "Daddy?" She hadn't called me that since she was 12. Derek and his parents followed. His mother, Patricia, surveyed the dining room with the kind of expression you'd give a house you're about to flip.
"The lighting in here is all wrong," she announced, sitting down without waiting for an invitation. "Too harsh. You need warmer bulbs. Dimmers, maybe." "And this table," Derek's father, Harold, added, rapping his knuckles against the wood. "Modern farmhouse is so 2019. You should consider mid-century. Walnut, probably. I know a dealer in Newport Beach." I poured myself coffee, said nothing. "Mom, Dad," Derek laughed uncomfortably. "It's Alex's home. I'm sure he decorated it exactly how he wanted." But his eyes told a different story. They were scanning the crown molding, the chandelier, the original artwork on the walls, appraising, calculating. Sarah touched my arm. "They're just trying to help, Dad. You know how design-conscious they are." Design-conscious. Right. "Actually," Derek said, setting down his fork, "I've been meaning to talk to you about something, Alex. Your finances." "My finances?" "Well, yes, 36 million is substantial wealth, but it needs proper management. Asset allocation, tax strategies, estate planning." He pulled out his phone. "I work with a firm in Los Angeles, top-tier wealth management. They could really help keep things safe." Safe from what? I wondered. From me? "We just want to make sure you're protected," Sarah added quickly. "You've worked so hard for this money." I almost laughed. Worked so hard. As if it hadn't been a lottery ticket I'd bought on a whim at a gas station in Oceanside. "I'll think about it," I said. Patricia sniffed. "You should also consider updating the landscaping. Those palms out front are so common. You need something with more presence." I watched them eat. Watched Derek check his phone between bites. Watched Harold examine the silverware like he was pricing it for auction. Watched Sarah smile at me, that same manufactured warmth she'd used yesterday. Then I saw it. Her eyes flicked toward my office door. Quick, calculated. She looked away fast, but not fast enough. The safe. She'd noticed it yesterday when she'd accidentally wandered in while I was making coffee. "Is that where you keep important documents?" she asked, too casually. I closed the door without answering. Now, watching her push eggs around her plate, I remembered something else. Years ago, maybe 20, she'd laughed at my work boots. They'd split at the sole and I'd duct-taped them because new ones weren't in the budget. "Dad, those are so embarrassing. Please don't pick me up from school wearing those." This morning, she'd complimented my Italian leather loafers. "Gorgeous shoes, Dad. You have great taste." Great taste, or great money. I knew which one she actually meant. Derek was still talking about investment portfolios and fiduciary responsibility. Patricia was sketching furniture arrangements on a napkin. Harold was Googling art dealers. And Sarah was watching me with those careful eyes, playing her role perfectly. They thought I was old, thought the money had made me soft, grateful, desperate for family. They forgot I was watching too.
I decided to test them. Not cruelly, not dramatically. Just a simple statement over lunch to see what lived beneath those polished smiles. "I've been thinking," I said, setting down my glass of water, "about the money, about what to do with it." 4 heads turned toward me instantly, like predators hearing movement in tall grass. "I want to donate a portion to charity. There's an organization in San Diego that helps families who've lost touch, reunification services, counseling, that sort of thing. Families who've been separated by hardship." The silence was immediate. Derek stopped chewing. Patricia's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Harold looked up from his phone for the first time all meal. And Sarah? Sarah's smile didn't quite completion. It hung there on her face, caught between performance and panic. "That's generous," Derek said slowly. His voice had lost its smoothness.
But have you thought about the tax implications? Charitable giving needs structure, proper vehicles. How much? Sarah interrupted. Her tone was still light, but I heard the edge underneath. I mean, that's wonderful, Dad, but you should make sure you're taken care of first. We're taken care of. There it was. Oh, I'm not sure yet, I said, deliberately vague. Maybe 10 million? 15? Patricia actually gasped. Harold's face went red. That's nearly half your winnings. You can't just... That's irresponsible financial planning. It's his money, Dad, Derek said quickly, shooting his father a warning look. Then to me, softer, but Alex, seriously, that's a massive decision. You should consult with professionals first, with us. We're family. Family. I smiled. You're right. I should think it through. Absolutely, Sarah said, relief flooding her features. No rush, right? These things take time. The conversation moved on, but the tension remained. Invisible, but present, like humidity before a storm. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 1 a.m., I got out of bed and walked downstairs for water. The villa was dark, except for the soft landscape lighting outside. My bare feet made no sound on the marble. I was halfway to the kitchen when I saw it. A sliver of light beneath my office door. I stopped, listened. The soft sound of drawers opening, papers rustling, someone moving carefully, quietly, trying not to wake anyone. I pressed myself against the wall and waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The light clicked off. The door opened slowly. Sarah emerged, silhouetted against the darkness. She wore a robe, her phone's light flash now off. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking left, then right, making sure the coast was clear. Then she moved toward the stairs, fast but quiet. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She passed within 3 feet of where I stood in the shadows. I could smell her perfume. Something expensive, floral. The same scent Linda used to wear on special occasions. When she disappeared upstairs, I waited another 5 minutes before entering my office. Everything looked normal. Almost. The desk drawer I always kept locked, the one with my financial documents, my lawyer's contact information, the deed to this house, sat slightly ajar. The lock had been picked or forced. Scratches marred the brass. On my desk, my laptop had been moved. Just an inch, maybe 2. But I'd left it aligned with the edge of the desk pad, and now it wasn't. She was looking. Searching. Trying to find out exactly how much I had and where I'd hidden it. I sat down in my chair and stared at that laptop for a long time. Above me, the house was silent again. Everyone sleeping peacefully in their borrowed rooms, dreaming of money that didn't belong to them. They thought I didn't notice. They thought I was old, lonely, desperate enough for family that I'd ignore every red flag. But I had spent 15 years learning to see clearly, and I saw everything. I couldn't sleep after finding Sarah in my office. Around 3 a.m., I went back downstairs. The villa felt different in the dead of night, less like a home and more like a museum, full of beautiful things that meant nothing. I ended up at my desk again, staring at the drawer Sarah had broken into, and there, still tucked beneath the unread mail, was Linda's letter. 3 years. I'd carried it for 3 years without opening it. My hands shook as I picked it up. The envelope was soft with age, the edges slightly worn from being moved so many times. Linda's handwriting on the front, My name and her careful script, the one she'd used to write grocery lists and birthday cards and notes in Sarah's lunchbox. I slid my finger under the seal. The paper inside was thin, delicate. 2 pages, front and back, dated 3 days before she died. Alex, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll even come to the funeral, but I need to write it anyway because I'm running out of time, and there are things I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. My throat tightened. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it's too little, too late, but I need you to know that what happened between you and Sarah, that was my fault, not yours. After the divorce, I was angry, hurt. I felt abandoned even though I know the truth was more complicated than that. We both made mistakes. But in my anger, I poisoned her against you. I didn't do it all at once. It was small things, comments here and there. Your father didn't call again. Your father's too busy working to come to your recital. I made you the villain in our story because it was easier than admitting we'd both failed. Sarah idolized me. She believed everything I said, and I used that, Alex. God forgive me. I used my own daughter's love to hurt you. I had to stop reading, put the letter down, breathe. The room blurred. I pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. When I can see again, I kept reading. By the time I realized what I'd done, the damage was complete. Sarah had built a wall between you two, and I didn't know how to tear it down without admitting I'd helped build it. So I stayed quiet. I let her believe the narrative I'd created. When you lost your job, when things got hard, she called you an embarrassment, didn't she? I know she did because she told me, and she was proud of it. Proud that she'd finally stood up to you. I should have stopped her, should have told her the truth, that you were the one who worked double shifts so she could have dance lessons, that you were the one who sat up with her when she had nightmares, that you loved her more than anything in this world, even when loving her meant breaking your own back. But I didn't. I stayed quiet, and I've regretted it every single day since. I'm dying, Alex. The doctors say I have weeks, maybe a month. And the only thing I'm taking to my grave besides this disease is the guilt of what I did to you, to Sarah, to all of us. I hope someday you two find your way back to each other. I hope she realizes what she's lost, what I took from both of you. I'm so sorry. Linda. The letter slipped from my hands. I sat there in the darkness, tears running down my face for the first time in years. Not gentle tears, hard, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. Linda had poisoned the well, turned my daughter against me, and by the time she'd regretted it, it was too late. But Sarah was 23 when she left, 23 when she called me pathetic, 23 when she chose silence over reconciliation. Old enough to know better, old enough to question the narrative she'd been fed. Linda had planted the seeds, but Sarah had chosen to let them grow. I picked up the letter again, read it one more time. Forgiveness. Linda was asking for forgiveness from the beyond the grave, but upstairs, my daughter was sleeping in my house, searching my office, calculating how to take what wasn't hers. Some wounds explained the scar. They don't excuse the blade. I found her on the terrace the next morning. Sarah stood at the railing, coffee in hand, watching the ocean. The sunrise painted everything gold. Her hair, the water, the future she thought she was claiming. Beautiful, isn't it? I said. She jumped slightly, then smiled. God, yes. I could get used to this view. I'm sure you could, I thought. Sarah, I started, keeping my voice gentle. Do you remember Balboa Park? Her smile faltered. What? That swing set. You were 8. I pushed you so high you said you could touch the clouds. She stared at her coffee. Dad, that was a long time ago. I laughed so hard that day. We got ice cream after. Mint chocolate chip, your favorite. You got it all over your shirt, and I don't really remember. She cut me off. Her voice had gone flat. I do, I said quietly. I remember all of it. Every birthday, every school play, every time I worked a double shift so you could have what you needed. She sighed, setting down her cup. Is this about money? Because we're not asking for everything, Dad, just what's fair. Do you remember our apartment in San Diego? Of course I do. Her jaw tightened. Do you remember why we lived there? Why it was small? Why I wore those boots you were embarrassed by? Dad, because I was putting you through UCLA, Sarah. Every dollar I made went to... We were poor. She spun to face me, her composure cracking. Okay, we were poor, and it was humiliating. My friends had parents who were doctors and lawyers, and I had to lie about what you did for a living because dock worker sounded pathetic. The word hit like a fist. You chose that, she continued, her voice rising. You could have gotten a better job, gone back to school, done something, anything, but you just accepted being that. I was raising you alone, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. After your mother left, Mom left because you couldn't provide. She told me, your mother poisoned you against me. I pulled Linda's letter from my pocket. She wrote this before she died, admitted it, said she was sorry for turning you into someone who could walk away from the person who loved you most. Sarah stared at the letter but didn't reach for it. I don't need to read that. She regretted what she did. Do you? Silence. Behind us, the terrace door opened. Derek stepped out, phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, estate planning, full asset review. He saw us and covered the phone. Sarah, everything okay? Fine, she said quickly, turning away from me. Derek lowered his phone. Alex, good. I was just talking to our lawyers. They'll need your estate plans soon. Health directives, beneficiary designations, the works. Standard stuff for someone of your age. Someone of your age. We just want to make sure everything's in order. You know, in case something happens. Better to be prepared. He smiled. That same practiced smile from the first day. And suddenly, with horrifying clarity, I understood. They weren't waiting for me to share the money. They were waiting for me to die. The lawyers, the estate planning, the urgency in Derek's voice, Sarah's refusal to engage with the past because the past didn't matter if I was just a temporary obstacle. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll think about it, I said slowly. Derek's smile widened. Great. I'll send over their contact info. I walked back inside, Linda's letter still in my hand, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. They didn't come for reconciliation. They came for inheritance. I knew what I had to do.
I scheduled the meeting for Thursday at 2 p.m. My lawyer arrived in a black Mercedes. Actually, Marcus, an old friend from the docks who'd gone to law school at 40 and now ran a small practice in Carlsbad. I'd called him 2 days ago, explained what I needed. You sure about this? He asked. I've never been more sure of anything. Derek and Sarah were waiting in the living room when Marcus arrived, both dressed like they were closing on a house. Sarah wore pearls. Derek had on a suit that probably cost more than my first car. Mr. Patterson, Marcus said formally, shaking my hand. He'd always called me Alex, but today we were playing roles. Shall we begin? We sat at the dining table, the one Harold had said was too modern farmhouse. Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. This is your last will and testament. As discussed, you're establishing Sarah Patterson Chen
as primary beneficiary of your estate, with provisions for— Wait, Derek interrupted, leaning forward. What about the liquid assets, the lottery winnings specifically? Marcus didn't miss a beat. Those are included in the estate distribution. Upon Mr. Patterson's death, all assets, including the remaining lottery funds, this property, and associated investments, will transfer to Ms. Patterson Chen. I watched Sarah's face. She was trying to look somber, appropriate, but her eyes were bright. There are some contingencies, of course, standard stuff, competency clauses, challenge provisions. That's fine, Sarah said quickly. Whatever's standard. Marcus slid the documents toward me. If you'll initial here, here, and here, then sign at the bottom. I picked up the pen. It was the same pen I'd used to sign Sarah's UCLA enrollment forms, the same pen I'd used to write birthday cards she never acknowledged. Cheap plastic, barely works, but I'd kept it all these years. My hand didn't shake as I initialed each page. Derek watched like a hawk. Sarah sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, playing the dutiful daughter. I signed the final page with a flourish. Witnessed and notarized, Marcus said, adding his own signature. This will take immediate effect upon your death, Alex, Mr. Patterson. When do we get copies? Derek asked. I'll file these with the county tomorrow. Copies will be available next week. Sarah exhaled. Actually exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath. Thank you, Dad. This means a lot, really. She hugged me. Her arms felt like props. They left the room talking in low voices, probably calculating again, planning, waiting. I sat at the table long after they'd gone. Marcus had stayed behind. Now he pulled out another set of documents, the real ones. You sure you want to do this? He asked quietly. I looked at the papers. The real will. The one that would transfer my entire estate, every penny of those $36 million, into a charitable trust for widowed dock workers and their families. People who understood what it meant to work until your back broke. People who'd helped me survive when I had nothing. The same hand that once shoveled cargo at 4 a.m. now held the pen that would write a different ending. I signed my name. File this one tomorrow morning, I said, first thing. Marcus nodded. The fake documents? Burn them. He smiled. Poetic justice, Alex. Justice? Maybe. Or just making sure the money goes where it was always meant to.
That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Upstairs, Sarah and Derek were probably celebrating, planning their future with money they'd never touch. Tomorrow, I had let them keep believing, but the pen had already spoken. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of them living in my home, eating my food, measuring my rooms for furniture they'd never buy. 3 weeks of fake smiles and rehearsed affection. Then Derek made a phone call. I was on the balcony when I heard him shouting. His voice carried through the open terrace doors, sharp, panicked, furious. What do you mean there's no record? We were there. We watched him sign. Silence. Then, a charitable trust for dock workers. That's impossible. More silence. When? I took a sip of my coffee. The ocean was calm today. Peaceful. The terrace door slammed open. Derek stood there, phone still in his hand, his face red. Behind him, Sarah appeared, then his parents, all of them drawn by the shouting. You lied to us, Derek. His voice shook. The will, it's fake. You never left Sarah anything. Patricia gasped. Harold started cursing. Sarah just stared at me. Dad? Derek continued. The lawyer I called checked the county records. Your entire estate goes to some charity, widowed dock workers and their families. Every single dollar. Derek, calm down, Sarah started. Calm down, calm down. He spun on her. Your father played us. That whole meeting was theater. Those documents weren't real. They felt real, Harold muttered. Because he wanted us to think they were. Derek's hands were shaking. He let us believe, he let us stay here thinking, how could you? Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. She moved toward me, her composure finally cracking. How could you lie to us like that? I set down my coffee cup. Like you lied about caring. I do care! You cared about the money, I said quietly. You showed up the day after my lottery win made the news. Not before, not during the 15 years I was alone. The day after. That's not... We wanted to reconnect. You searched my office in the middle of the night, broke into my desk. Derek was talking to lawyers about estate planning before you'd been here 48 hours. Sarah's face went white. Someone your age, that's what you said, like you were already planning my funeral. You're twisting this, Derek started. Am I? I stood up. Tell me, Sarah, when's my birthday? Silence. When did your mother die? More silence. What was my favorite meal? What did I do before I worked the docks? What's the last thing I said to you before you walked out 15 years ago? She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing came out. You don't know, because you never cared to know. I was just the embarrassment you left behind, the failure, until I wasn't. I was young, Sarah's voice broke. I was angry and I made mistakes, but I'm here now. For the money. No! She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. For you, I need... What you need is $36 million. You owe me. The words exploded out of her. You owe me for everything, for the childhood I had, for the apartment, for the embarrassment, for... I gave you everything once, I said quietly. Everything I had. My back, my youth, my pride, every dollar, every hour, every piece of myself. And you walked away. You left me empty. Dad, please! Now you want more. I looked at all of them. Derek, his parents, Sarah with her ruined makeup and designer clothes. You came here thinking I was weak, lonely, desperate enough for family that I'd ignore what you really wanted. We're family, Sarah screamed. No, I said. Family doesn't disappear for 15 years. Family doesn't break into offices. Family doesn't call lawyers before unpacking their suitcases. Patricia grabbed her purse. We're leaving. Harold, get the car. Derek stood frozen, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. Sarah sank onto the terraced chair, sobbing into her hands. Not the grief of loss, the anger of someone who'd gambled everything and lost. I watched them fall apart and felt nothing but peace.
I called security at 3:15 p.m. 2 men arrived in a white truck with the company logo on the side. The same firm that had installed my gate, my cameras, my peace of mind. Professional, polite, efficient. Mr. Patterson, the older one said, you called about an escort? Yes. I gestured toward the living room where Derek's parents were frantically packing. These guests are leaving today. Now. Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes red and swollen. Dad, please, can we just talk? Just you and me? We did talk, I said. 15 years ago. You said everything you needed to say. I was wrong. She came down the stairs, stumbling slightly. I was young and stupid and angry, but I can change. We can start over. No, I said. We can't. Derek emerged from the guest wing, suitcase in hand, his face a storm. This is illegal. You can't just throw us out. We have rights. You're guests, the security guard said calmly. The homeowner has asked you to leave. You can go voluntarily, or we can call the police. Patricia appeared with Harold, both of them already by the door. This is unconscionable, treating family like criminals. You're not family. You're strangers who came from money that was never yours. I'm your daughter! Sarah's voice cracked. She grabbed my arm. Doesn't that mean anything? Don't I mean anything? I looked at her hand on my sleeve. Manicured nails, soft skin, no calluses for hard work. You did, I said quietly, once. You meant everything, Then why? Because 15 years ago, when I needed you, when I lost my job and my dignity and was trying to survive, you called me an embarrassment and walked out. Your mother died, and you looked through me at the funeral like I was invisible. I sent you cards, flowers, messages, nothing. Silence. I'm sorry. You're not sorry. You're desperate. There's a difference. Derek moved toward the door, dragging his suitcase. Let's go. This is a waste of time. Derek, wait. Sarah turned to him, then back to me. Please, I'll do anything. I'll prove I've changed. Just give me a chance. I gave you a chance. I gave you 18 years of chances. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Father's Day you ignored, every year you could have called, could have tried, could have remembered that I existed. The security guards moved toward her suitcases, still sitting by the stairs. No, Sarah lunged for them. You can't, this isn't fair. Fair? The word tasted bitter. Was it fair when you showed up the day after my lottery win was announced? Was it fair when Derek called lawyers before you unpacked? When you broke into my office at night? She froze. I know. I've known everything from the beginning. Derek was already at the door. His parents had their luggage. Only Sarah remained, tears streaming down her face, looking smaller than I'd seen her since she was a child. For one heartbeat, I hesitated. Saw her at 8 years old, laughing on that swing. Saw her graduation photo. Saw every moment I'd loved her before she learned to hate me. Then I remembered the silence, the funeral, the 15 years. I shook my head. Family takes care of family, when family remembers what that means. The security guards escorted her out. I stood at the window and watched them load the SUV, watched Sarah climb into the passenger seat, her face buried in her hands, watched Derek slam the door. The iron gate opened. Their tires crunched over the gravel, the same sound I'd heard at 2:47 p.m. 3 weeks ago. The gate closed behind them with a soft metallic click. And I was alone again. But this time, I chose it. The villa feels different now. Still large, still empty, but the emptiness has changed, from hollow to peaceful, like the difference between an abandoned house and a monastery. I've started spending my mornings on the terrace, overlooking the ocean, coffee in hand, bare feet on warm stone, watching the sun climb over the water. No voices upstairs, no fake laughter, no footsteps in my office at midnight. Just silence. But this silence is mine. A week after they left, I found myself at my desk with a pen and blank paper. The same cheap pen I'd used to sign the real will. My hand moved before my brain caught up. Dear Sarah. I stopped, stared at those 2 words for 20 minutes. What do you say to someone you loved completely and lost entirely? What words could possibly bridge 15 years of absence and 3 weeks of betrayal? I don't think I'll ever send this. Maybe that's the point. Some things need to be written, not read. I wanted you to come back. For 15 years, I imagined scenarios where you'd knock on my door, apologize, tell me you'd made a mistake. I rehearsed forgiveness speeches in my head, practiced what I'd say, how I'd welcome you home. Then, you actually came back, and it was nothing like I imagined. You didn't come for me. You came for what I had. And maybe that's what I needed to see. Not the daughter I raised, but the woman you became when I wasn't looking. Your mother told me she poisoned you against me. I believe her. But you were 23 when you left, Sarah. Old enough to question. Old enough to choose differently. I don't hate you. I don't think I even blame you anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of carrying love for someone who sees me as an ATM. Tired of hoping. Sometimes love ends not with anger, but with acceptance. I accept that you're not coming back. Not really. And I accept that maybe that's okay. Dead. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Unsent, unread. Just words on paper that needed to exist somewhere other than my head. Then I pulled out a fresh sheet and started again. Dear Alex, you survived. You survived the divorce, the poverty, the loneliness, the funeral where your daughter looked through you, the 15 years of silence that felt like drowning, and you survived 3 weeks of people pretending to love you for money. That's not nothing. You spent your whole life giving. To Linda, to Sarah, to jobs that broke your body so others could have comfort. You gave until you had nothing left. Now you have something. Not just money. Permission. Permission to stop carrying people who dropped you years ago. Permission to build a life that's yours, not theirs. The Dock Workers Fund will help families that remind you of who you used to be. Widows and widowers working double shifts, raising kids alone, wearing duct-taped boots because new ones aren't in the budget. You remember them. You were them. That money will matter. It will change lives. It will mean something. Sarah would have spent it on furniture and vacations and things that disappear. You chose legacy. You survived. And now you get to live. That's enough. I signed my name at the bottom. This letter I kept out. Put it on my desk where I could see it. The ocean sound drifted through the open door. Waves against rocks, constant and patient. I'd always loved that sound, even back in the San Diego days when I could only hear it from a distance. Now, it was mine. Every morning, every evening. The villa was quiet. But silence, I was learning, isn't always loneliness. Sometimes it's just peace, waiting to be recognized. I picked up my coffee, walked back to the terrace and watched the sun paint the water gold. No one was coming. No one was leaving. Just me, the ocean, the silence I'd chosen. And for the first time and longer than I could remember, that was enough. A month has passed since the gate closed behind them. I'm standing in front of the mantel again, holding the photograph, the one from Balboa Park. Sarah at 8 years old, mid-laugh on that swing set, her pigtails flying, pure joy frozen in a single moment. I almost threw it away a dozen times. Almost buried it in a drawer with Linda's letter and all the other ghosts I've been carrying. But I didn't. Because that little girl, the one in this photo, she was real. She existed. She loved me with the uncomplicated fierceness that only children can manage. Before Linda's poison, before money and status mattered, before I became an embarrassment. That little girl deserved to be remembered, even if the woman she became forgot how to love. I set the photo back on the mantel, right where it's always been. Not because I'm clinging to the past, but because pretending it never existed would be its own kind of lie. She was my daughter. I was her father. That happened. It mattered. What came after doesn't erase what came before. The doorbell hasn't rung since they left. My phone hasn't buzzed with Sarah's name. No apologies, no final pleas, just silence. The kind that confirms you made the right choice, even when it hurts. Marcus called yesterday to tell me the first disbursement from the trust went through. 5 families, widows and widowers working the San Diego docks, raising kids alone, wearing boots held together with hope and duct tape. Each received $50,000. One woman cried on the phone for 10 minutes, said it was the first time in 3 years she didn't have to choose between rent and her daughter's asthma medication. I thought about Sarah's designer luggage, about Derek's Rolex, about Patricia's pearls, and I felt nothing but relief. The ocean is particularly beautiful today. Calm water, clear sky, pelicans diving for fish near the rocks. I've started taking walks along the beach in the mornings, something I never had time for when I was working those double shifts, when every moment was survival. Now I have time, space, silence, and I'm learning that silence isn't the enemy I thought it was. For 15 years, Sarah's silence felt like punishment, like abandonment, like proof that I'd failed as a father. But this silence, the one I chose when I closed that gate, this feels like freedom. I think about that moment when they arrived. 2:47 p.m., the crunch of gravel, the fake smiles, the suitcases full of entitlement. I think about the question everyone keeps asking, what did you do? People want drama. They want revenge stories, public humiliation, some grand cinematic moment where the villain gets destroyed. But that's not what happened. I didn't destroy Sarah. I just stopped carrying her. I stopped carrying the guilt, the hope, the fantasy that she'd wake up one day and remember who I was before I became inconvenient. I gave away millions to people who would use it to survive, not to redecorate. I closed the gate, and I let go. Not with anger, not with bitterness, not even with satisfaction. Just with acceptance. The photograph catches the afternoon light, Sarah's face illuminated, forever 8 years old, forever laughing. I smile at it, a real smile this time, sad but peaceful. I loved you, I whisper. I did everything I could. And it's true, I did. What came after, that was her choice, not mine. I walk back to the terrace, coffee in hand. The ocean stretches endlessly before me. The villa stands solid behind me. The gate remains closed. Somewhere out there, Sarah is living her life. Derek is calculating his next move. They're telling their version of the story, probably painting me as the villain, the miser, the bitter old man who turned his back on family. Let them. I know the truth. I smiled and did what I should have done a long time ago. I let go. And in letting go, I finally found peace. So here's my question for you. Was I right to handle it this way? Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done in my position? If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Because trust me, there's so much more on this channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next life story.